Thank you so very much for joining us on today's Fireside Chat. We're excited to have you here today. Our conversation today will center around innovating for impact, African entrepreneurship, women's leadership, and the ESG-SDG advantage. This isn't just another business discussion. It's about how entrepreneurs from across Africa are transforming local challenges into global opportunities, on how leadership, purpose, and innovation can come together to create real impact. Now, as you must know, this requires multiple stakeholders in order for this to be successful. So we'd like to take just a few minutes to thank a few people who have made today's event possible. The first of which is the Darla School of Business, Associate Dean Mark Van Essen, the Sunoco International Business Department, Folks Center for International Business, of course, our office, the Office of Access, Opportunity, and Community Engagement at the Darla School of Business, and last but absolutely not least, Dixon Monk and the Columbia World Affairs Council. Dixon, we'd like to ask you, if you don't mind, to bring greetings and get us started today.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be with you today, and great to see everyone here. I am Dixon Monk. I'm the Executive Director of the Columbia World Affairs Council, a nonpartisan nonprofit operating here in Columbia, connecting our region with global cultures and ideas through innovative programs and exchanges, fostering international understanding and lasting relationships. I'd also like to thank our partners at the Darla School of Business, the Folk Center for International Business, particularly Associate Dean Dr. Deb Hazard, Executive Director Dr. Teresa Harrison, and Senior Directors Avery Hopkins at the Office of Access, Opportunity, and Community Engagement for bringing us all together today to hear from an amazing global leader in innovation and entrepreneurship, who we are delighted to have visiting us here in Columbia, South Carolina, all the way from Zambia. Talk about access and opportunity. This is wonderful. And we're so grateful for this occasion to present Sunoco Visiting Fellow and the 2025 UN Women Global Entrepreneurship Awardee, Ms. Tetiwe Nzimah. So wonderful to have you all here today. It is a great pleasure. Before we begin, I'd like to pass it back to Dr. Hazard for introductions of our speaker today. So thank you very much, Dr. Hazard, and welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Dixon. We appreciate your support and collaboration, and just super excited about this opportunity. As we all know, Africa is home to some of the world's fastest growing cities, youngest populations, and most dynamic entrepreneurs. The challenges there, whether in mobility, education, health, or sustainability, are complex, but they are also catalysts for new business models, for creative problem solving, and for leadership that inspires change. At the same time, women across the continent, including the one sitting here next to me, are stepping forward as founders, leaders, and change makers, often against the odds, bringing fresh perspectives and resilience into the entrepreneurial space. And increasingly, global conversations on sustainability, ESG, or environmental, social, and governance frameworks, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, also known as SDGs, they're not abstract frameworks, but real pathways for African businesses to grow, attract investment, and deliver social good that is measurable. Our guest today is someone who embodies all of these themes. She is the founder and CEO of Kitty's Commute, an innovative tech-enabled company based in Lusaka, Zambia, that is reimagining child safety and mobility. From tackling the world's real-world transportation challenges to creating trust with her families, she has built a business that is both commercially smart and socially impactful. Please join me in warmly welcoming Ms. Tedaway Nazima, founder and CEO of Kitty's Commute. And if you have access to the chat, how about we drop some sort of emoji or some sort of welcome to her in the chat as we're getting started. Thank you so very much. Tetiwe, it is a real pleasure to have you here with us. I'd like to start by taking the audience back to the beginning of your journey. What inspired you to create Kitty's Commute, and what problem were you determined to solve?
Thank you so much. And before I get into it, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. To you, Dixon, and to the entire community, thank you so much. To the Dallamore School of Business, it's really been an honor. I've had an interesting week as a Sonoko Fellow, and it's just been interesting and validating to what we are solving as Kitty's Commute, that definitely we're on the right trajectory. And to just get into the genesis of the business, I always say the business started off as a hidden passion. And I say this because a couple of years when I was in university, in between my semesters, I would help out my mom, who then had a daycare and primary school, just to help around with the management of the school system. But part of it meant us observing all the other external operations. And the one thing that really pained us was to see how the children were being transported to and from school. Then we didn't have ride-hailing services. And I grew up in a very small town, so no bus services. We didn't get into that as a school. But to see taxi drivers really just bunch up all the children into a car, not buckled up, and without a bother, whether the kids' hands or heads were out of the window, they just drove quickly, speedily, so they could get back onto the rank and be able to maximize on their profits. A few years later, when I had graduated and moved to the capital city, trying to settle down, that problem was so amplified because it was a bigger city. So it meant lots of traffic. Accidents were on the increase. We unfortunately experienced a few cases of kidnapping as well as child defilement. So that really seemed like a huge problem. I didn't think of the business then. It was only after I had a conversation with a colleague who felt I had the charisma and I was pretty good with kids, that they felt I could do well with that as a business. So we started it out just as a business entity and not really look at it as an empire that would build to provide a lasting solution and to build a legacy. And with that, we didn't necessarily have all systems in play. And one particular time I did have to travel, so I left somebody in charge of it. But unfortunately, when I got back, the business was mismanaged. Out of frustration, I shut it down. Now, the interesting thing is 2 years past that, I had a couple come back into Zambia, and they called me up, basically pleading for me to restart the business because they had heard about the business and they thought I was still operating. I seriously struggled with that, and out of just being of service, I took it up as a lunchtime hobby. And the whole time that I would literally service them, I had the privilege to interact closely with the mother of that child. I got to understand the real pain points, and that in itself started giving me validation. What was even greater was the fact that the mother was so happy and content with the services. It was like that was what she was waiting for, that she had so much good news, she literally wanted to share it to the whole world. So she sold me prematurely. I'd get calls from school, calls from other parents, and until I had a conversation with her to say I wasn't not ready to scale, and that wasn't the direction I wanted to head. So we had to keep it in-house, until a couple of years later that I had a few other people come on and I couldn't literally refuse. So that then just led me to trying to run it underground, to really understand and curate a tangible service, a tangible product that would then give out. And also because we understood that it was not just the transportation that the parents wanted. They needed a peace of mind. So what came with the peace of mind? Knowing that our drivers are properly trained, knowing that our drivers understand child psychology, so they know that the commute for their children is not just about transporting their child from point A to point B, but necessarily going the extra mile to ensuring that we create a very good environment for the child. So we started firming up the entity somewhere around 2024, which was only last year. I put up myself for the Stanchart Women in Tech, and we now had to start thinking around the technology that we'll bring into this solution. That in itself got us a grant of about $10,000. And that also validated it. With that grant, we had the boldness to just come out openly into the market. And so we've been openly operating from January 2025, and here we are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that background information on Kitty's Commute. It's really exciting. So you talked about really moving from a hidden passion and setting this up as an actual enterprise. Can you share with us what some of the earliest challenges were that you faced as a founder, and two, how you overcame those challenges?
Of course, the first and the biggest challenge is the trust of the parents, because over time their trust had been broken. They did not know who they could run out, they could run to ensure that their children were safe. So that really was our biggest problem, our biggest challenge. But once we had a buy-in, also, I think us running underground really helped us. We're able to have built a very good relationship, and that also in itself vouched for us. Remember, the mother prematurely sold us before we're ready to upscale. So once we're ready to go all out, she was ready to just share the news to everybody else. The other thing that helped us overcome the trust is each member of my team. I think it's the character and the reputation that they have. That in itself gave the parents to give us a benefit of the doubt, for starters. And the minute they started experiencing the service, they were able to see that, oh, right, these guys are really true to their word. Now, the second challenge, which still remains a challenge, is access to finance capital. Because as it is now, we've been able to grow at a much quicker pace than we ever anticipated. And I'm grateful that I think we took time to run the business underground. And once we had everything all laid out, we knew which direction we were going to run. That in itself has been able to speak for us. There's a lot of word of mouth going. So the rate at which we're getting requests is much more larger than the capacity that we currently have to be able to do that. So just trying to get access to more capital to expand our services.
Well, you are doing amazing work, and I think that today's webinar and all of the work you've done here over the last week or so is going to help you with that need to access more capital. So looking back, what mindset or values guide you through the uncertainty that you face in early stage business launch?
I'll say three things: purpose, excellence, and faith. And if you have to look at who I am or the sort of character I've built for myself over the past years, you'll be able to see that it's one of purpose, one of excellence, and one of faith. I've had to have the faith that even when it doesn't look all rosy, I know that we just have to keep on going. It's just a matter of time, and I have to carry my team with me. And even though we're not yet at a place where we can comfortably say, oh, wow, we're breaking even and we're making the millions, but just having the solution that validates itself and is able to bring smiles to many families really is one of the things that we carry on in our journey. Purpose is understanding who I am and what role I have to play in this particular puzzle. From my side of the world, we say it takes a whole village to raise up a child. Right. As Kitty's Commute, not just as me as a founder, but me and myself and the entire team, we believe that we are greatest piece of that village that helps to raise the child. So just acknowledging all that and bringing it all in together.
Excellent. That was amazing. So we started purposefully at a micro level looking at your personal journey.
Yes.
Now I want to sort of expand it out a bit and move macro level and talk a little bit about African entrepreneurship and innovation. It is said that many African entrepreneurs are solving hyper-local or local problems, which implies that those problems only persist in specific or small geographic areas. Is the need for safe and reliable transportation just a local problem for Zambia based on your experience? And how do you see solutions scaling to regional or even global opportunities?
Thank you for that. I don't see our solution as just a local problem. It's definitely a global problem. It might differ here and there depending on the geographical landscape or the area that would wish to expand to. But one thing is for sure, parents are truly becoming busy in their lifestyles, and the children are even becoming busier. You know, there's so much going on with the children. Besides school, there's extracurricular activities. We want the children to upskill at an early age. And we can't always be there to help out with the transportation. So that in itself validates the need for the business. However, it's looking at the few underlying issues that goes to speak into what really are the pain points that people out here in South Colombia might want to look out for. How does that differ from the sort of characteristics or the sort of issues that the parents are trying to look out for in Zambia? For us, it could be our road landscape, you know, and for a place like this, it could be having a more inclusive option for the transportation. But basically, when you look at the one true underlying issue, which is having the reliable services that you can provide, that will still give you a peace of mind as a parent, knowing that when you're seated locked into that meeting, you know that your child is going to be safe and is going to be transported in an efficient manner.
Absolutely. Now, you've spoken to this just a bit. My next question was, excuse me, it was related to how operating in Zambia has shaped your business model. Can you maybe identify one or two contextual factors that really have shaped your business model, given that you've started your business in Zambia, and how that possibly could be different from startups in other areas? You've spoken to it just a bit, but maybe sort of focusing in on one or two.
Okay, so I'll speak more or less on the African landscape.
Okay.
Most of the issues that are being sorted out in Africa are pretty much the same. The only difference is the location and the boundaries. So the same issues that we have in Zambia are the same issues that Zimbabwe would have, are the same issues that Namibia will have, are the same issues that Tanzania will have. And true to it, people in our networks will keep coming back to us based on things that they've seen on our social media feeds or from the interactions that we've been able to have. And they'll literally give us good feedback to say we're on the right trajectory. They'll actually even come back sometimes with certain situations and stories validating why we've posted things a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely that in itself just shows that it's not just a Zambian problem. It's not locked into the Zambian demographic, but it's actually being birthed in Zambia and linking to the rest of the world.
Absolutely. I love that. So my next question is about what entrepreneurs in other parts of the world can learn from African entrepreneurs, given your approaches to problem solving. And I'll say that in my time spent there, one of the things that I remarked was just how resilient and how resourceful African entrepreneurs are. Can you talk a little bit about what the rest of us can learn from your approaches to problem solving?
It's truly understanding that problem solving is a core to innovation, and we should not see ourselves disadvantaged. I believe there's usually a negative narrative about Africa, being in Africa, and just necessarily associating all the issues and all the problems to Africa. Most times, it's probably because we concentrate on the problems. There's much more good that comes out of Africa. There's so much innovation that really comes out of Africa. And sometimes we are not just equipped right. So understanding that you're not just a local change maker, you're not just a local innovator. And that really means it speaks into a whole mindset shift. So it calls for Africans to really have a mindset shift, knowing that they are placed on the continent, not to be a part of the problem, but to acknowledge that problem and bring out the solution. Okay, and that solution should come with a lot of innovation and just being unique. There's so much uniqueness. We are great minds. We are so talented. I've been able to see a lot of children, a lot of youths out there in the remotest areas. But the minds that they would have, the solutions that they would have, minus them going through proper education, is literally mind-blowing. And it's now that we're also trying to bridge the gap in all these spheres. And when we speak of things like empowerment, what does that mean? So really acknowledging that we are innovators, and for the fact that I'm privileged to even be a part of this audience automatically gives me a voice to say, look, there are much more greater people than myself. And come on over to Africa and appreciate the sort of innovation that we have.
Yes.
For all we know, we could have a whole team with a whole lot of solutions for the whole wide world. So acknowledging that we are in Africa for a whole lot of innovation and solution.
So I love that. And thank you so much for calling out some of those false narratives. I can tell you firsthand, they do exist. We have to have different experiences. We have to be willing to broaden our lens, shift our mindsets, and a trip to Africa to see all that is good there, I think can certainly help that. But thank you for calling that out. Let's talk a little bit about women's leadership and empowerment. And I think I'd be remiss if we did not do that with you here today. How do you think women leaders bring unique perspectives to business and community building?
Okay. I think there's so much strength, even before we talk about it from the African perspective, just a woman as a whole. There's so much that we embody as a woman. We always say that we're better multitaskers, we handle issues better, and all those things. So acknowledging that we have that strength really sets us way apart, right? And what needs to then happen is we need to continuously empower ourselves, right? In as much as we've got so much within us, a lot happens to us. And sometimes it breaks us so bad that by the time that you break up, you put up the pieces, you've lost so much, and it could be in terms of age, that by the time you possibly convince yourself that I'm now old, I don't think I can do anything. But if you have a community of fellow women who will come up and build you, and you can really agree with me that over the past couple of years, we've been able to see that.
Absolutely.
There's been so many movements that have been coming up, and everyone is just trying to support and put the woman out there.
That's right.
And now I think we've kind of like overstretched it, that now we're going back to say, oh, can we balance it out, because we've taken this to a whole new level. But that also just goes to speak into the amount of strength and how much we can truly be for one another. So just being there for one another, ensuring that we be better. We've seen, I think, well, growing up, give a woman $50 to kind of like budget it out and see how much she'll be resourceful with that.
There you go.
That is something. It's something,
Absolutely.
it automatically speaks into how much more we can do when we're empowered, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I love that. And you talk about what is possible when we empower women the correct way. That being said, what advice would you give to young women, whether students or professionals, who aspire to take leadership roles in business or civic spaces?
Okay. The one thing I always say, and I live by this, is in everything that you do, be true to thyself, right? What does that mean? I could try and come here and say all the nice things, but if I'm not being true to myself, guess what? When I go back and I'm seated alone in my room, it's going to haunt me.
Absolutely.
And it's going to haunt how my future really plays out. Because in areas where I'm able to acknowledge weaknesses and call out for help, I did not. And I just thought, oh, I made a picture to everybody that I've got it all figured out. So what I would encourage young females out there is know yourself, know what you carry, know where you're going, and clearly identify that pathway.
Wow.
Clearly identify that pathway and stick to it. The right people will come to you, and just keep on pushing. Just keep on pushing.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. So just kind of following on with that just a bit, in your experience, what specific structures, whether it's mentorship, any sort of policy frameworks, maybe even finance, what structures are most effective in supporting women entrepreneurs across Africa and even beyond?
Mentorship is one big thing, definitely. And of course, mentorship also speaks into who you are, the path you're on. It's okay for everybody to want to be mentored by the most famous, impactful person, but that person might not be the right fit for you, right? I always give this kind of like scenario, right? I'm Christian by faith, right? And as a woman, I believe I'm a helper, right? So by knowing who you are, knowing which path you're on, it definitely speaks into the sort of tools that you carry as a woman, right?
Yeah.
And there's no way I'm going to have the tools of a plumber and go and look for a mentor who is an electrician to help me. That doesn't work.
Right.
So really it's not just about mentorship, but getting the right mentor.
Absolutely.
Right. Getting the right mentor. There's a difference between having a mentor and a sponsor. Who are your sponsors in life? Who speaks for you in rooms that you are not? So having that, and constantly having a vision board. I strongly believe in vision boards. I strongly believe in strategic plans for myself, for my business, because my life is equally a plan. I need to have that plan. What do the next 3 years look like? What do the next 5 years look like? What are my priorities right now? How do I balance out my life will? So acknowledging all that and putting it all together. But I would say mentorship really is key. And I think once you've got mentorship, your mentor is that great compass who'll be able to direct and help you change a few things and get you into the right place.
So words of wisdom for our listeners. I hope you're taking down some notes here. This is excellent. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something that I know you are really passionate about and committed to, and that is environmental, social, and governance frameworks, and also the SDG or Sustainable Development Goals, aligning your business with those. So as we've talked about before, Kitty's Commute is tackling issues that are aligned with child safety, mobility, and community trust. How do you map your impact to the UN Sustainable Development Goals?
Okay. Thank you so much. First of all, I think there's been a great myth around the SDGs. People will just talk about you have to speak the SDG language for you to get funding, but really when you drill down to why the SDGs are there and why it's very important for you to align that, you find that it's for the prosperity, and it definitely defines whether your business will withstand the test of time or it will easily just die down, right? And that's why I guess they're called sustainable development goals, right? So what are the goals that speak into the sustainable development of your business? What is it that your business speaks into that you have to really tackle? And whatever goals that you're going to align your business with will speak into how you then apply them, say, in your strategic plans as well. So we've been able to drill down and see the SDGs that we're currently working on now. And I know over time, as we also speak into how the ESG alignment goes on, you will see that there is a shift in the focus of the SDGs, right? So for now, we speak into 3, 4, 5, 9, and 11, right? Because we understand that this is not just about transportation. It's about us contributing to the education system by ensuring that the child is in the right frame. As I said before, how trained are my drivers to ensure that we create that right environment? We have the positive mindset already as the children are commuting if it's to school. That way it's easier for the teachers to then kickstart off the day on a great high because the child is in the right frame, right? That then also speaks into the well-being of them. We're also trying to bridge the gap. How do we balance it out? Most times, if you have to look between the male or the female, who's usually doing the school runs? Female. They're also career people. So how are they managing that with their careers? But we're saying if we're stepping into their roles, it means they have much more time to advance their career. And more than that, we're saying, can we empower other women to be female drivers? Because of all the issues that I alluded before, and these are the things that were the parents' pain points, you find that the first request that a parent will have, especially a mother, will be, is it possible that I can have a female driver? So it means that there is need for us to have more female drivers than the male drivers just to create the balance and to answer that call. So we speak into all those things. And when I talk about over time as really shifting or having a few additional SDGs that align to the business, we get into how ESG is a living part of our lives. We understand that we're growing and we're not here for a short time. We're here for many decades to come. I've talked about how we've started out in Zambia, but we're linking out our solution to the rest of the world. So it is a global solution. Now, if you look into how much social impact will we create with that? What are we going to do? So that should speak into our ESG framework. When you look at the environmental impact, we're currently working on petrol run cars, right? Now, how much emissions are we going to contribute to the planet? Is that the best way? So how do we become more environmental friendly? We have to start from the onset now, starting to think of how we transition from the petrol run cars into the EVs.
Absolutely.
And these are some of the things that my team and I have been working on. I've been privileged here to to go down to Scout Motors just to appreciate the whole EV evolution and how that runs and how that truly speaks into our ESG framework. So really understanding that what we're doing and how we have aligned the business towards the SDG goals, and the ESG speaks into the prosperity and the longevity of our business rather than it more or less speaking the investor's language.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And so because you've covered SDGs, I'll skip that, or covered the ESGs, I'll skip that question, because you really have already talked about what that looks like in practice when you're trying to embed those principles in your business. Can you talk about, from your perspective, and you touched on some of this a little bit, what misconceptions do people have about ESG and SDG work in Africa? What are some of the misconceptions?
And I think I just spoke into it. The misconception there is you just need to slot it in there and you'll be able to have all the investors that you want. But I believe that investors are much more into into the business than just knowing that you've got it scribbled out.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's very important that even as you have your ESG framework laid out for you, you also need to have back-end reports, because how do you see yourself? The way that we have piloted our business now should not be the same way that we should be able to have an ESG report in the next year or so. We should be able to say, okay, so this year we were able to commute XYZ children. We've been able to bridge the gap. We've been able to empower so many females. And say in next year's report, should we be able to start with the transition of EVs, would I be talking about what are the carbon savings that we have been able to then have? So that speaks into the progressiveness, and that in itself is where the real impact is. So the misconception there really is, just having things aligned would get you all the investors that you need. But I believe it's a big misconception.
Well, thank you so much for just circling back and clarifying that. So at this point, I want to talk a little bit about scaling impact and global relevance. Where do you see opportunities for collaborations across borders, even as it relates to Kitty's Commute, scaling Kitty's Commute, in terms of partnering with global peers, universities, or corporates? Give us some insights.
I think the first place is understanding that we're all now in a global village. And so it's easy for each one of us to know what everyone else is doing. And again, it speaks into the purpose, right? So for you to truly understand what is your purpose, you'd be able to easily look into which stakeholders would easily align and speak into your purpose. And those are the people that you go after, right? And those are the people that you look out for to say, where are the areas of collaboration? What does it look like? What does a win look like for that collaborating partner? What does a win look like for us? What does a win look like for the rest of the world? Because your win should not just be win for your company, win for your collaborator, but again, it's a win for the planet. So how are you both contributing? So are you meeting up your mission? Is there somewhere where it just becomes global? And that's where the global impact is. Because if I'm out in Zambia and we're not yet expanded yet, and we've got a collaborator out here, yes, both communities will be impacted. But if we're then hoping for global impact, we need to meet that third intersection. And that's what will take us to then growing our impact out there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm going to ask a question. If you had access to unlimited partnerships or resources, what bold innovation would you pursue next?
Wow. What bold innovation would we pursue next? I believe it would be amplifying what we're currently on, because we are not yet done. We're just getting started. And like I said, one of the challenges that we've had is the access to finance. So ensuring that truly what we're all about achieving is really gotten to, can we get to a place where every child has that equal opportunity and has that right to a safe commute? Once we get that, then we would have achieved. And this is not just for anybody, the differently abled, the ones that are found in the middle to high income earner bracket, the ones who are out there in the remote areas. Can we give them the same access and contribute to the betterment of their well-being? I believe that's a place where it would still be.
Amplifying the good work you're already doing. I love that. So I'm going to sort of combine two questions in the essence of time so we can get to our audience questions. If you could leave the audience with one call to action, something they should start doing tomorrow to innovate for impact, what would that be? But I'm going to ask also to speak to the role of the next generation of students and entrepreneurs. What can they do to advance Africa's development agenda?
Okay, the role of the next generation of students is them acknowledging that they are the now. They're not the future, but they are the now, and they need to step into it. When you look at Africa, you look at the liberation of freedom, ask yourself at what age were the freedom fighters? They're probably around the same time, the same age as you are now. What age was Mother Teresa when she embarked her journey? Probably around the same age. So acknowledging that you are the now, you are that solution that we need. Can you get yourself onto the right trajectory? You've got all the resources and even experience the better advancement. We've got AI, we have all these search engines. They didn't have these things way back. So having all those things, and we can easily connect. We've got LinkedIn. You'd be able to easily search for people who could help you get around certain things. Just going out there and being the global change maker that you are supposed to be. And now speaking to the call of action, like I said before, the one thing that speaks so heavily into me, and I have it written, it's a constant reminder: be true to thyself, right? Being true to yourself, doing you, being you, acknowledging that you live in a community, be it in a local, but much more on the bigger scale. You are part of the global picture. You're part of the global village. So do what you have to do. Be creative. Carry everyone that you can along. Be of impact to the next person. You just don't know. It could be an inspiration that you give the person, but you could also just be joining forces to be the next legacy creators.
Yes, that is awesome. So at this juncture, we would like to turn our attention to the chat and ask for some in-room assistance to see if we have any questions in the chat. Let's see. Any questions? If you all have any questions that you'd like to ask, we do have a few minutes to take some from the audience via the chat box. So feel free to drop questions in the chat if you don't mind. All right, this says for new. Can't get to that. It says for new, but I can't get to it. It's
Yeah.
okay, and move that over.
Yes.
All right, let's see. So thus far, it doesn't appear that we have any questions. So I do see one has come in. How has Kitty's Commute shaped how you are as a person? And that is coming in from Taylor James, one of our absolutely amazing scholars here. So how has Kitty's Commute shaped you, shaped how you are as a person?
Thank you so much, Taylor, for that interesting question. And truly, I think it's made me realize that I'm onto something much bigger than myself. The vision is way bigger than me, acknowledging that I can't do it alone. I may be the vision carrier, but I need to be able to embrace everybody else. It's also amplified my character in more ways than one. I believe I'm a better leader, knowing that I have to lead on different fronts. Believe it or not, I've been able to interact with every child that we have onto our commute. And that's because I need to understand who we currently have. I know a few years from now, as we grow, I may not have that opportunity. But whilst I can we build our own family can we build our own community so that I can interact with the children, I can interact with the parents, I can interact with the drivers. So it's taught me to be a better leader. It's taught me to exercise a whole lot of empathy, particularly in my leadership. It's taught me to really see things from different viewpoints. Okay, I have to play different characters. Sometimes I have to sit in the shoes of the child. Sometimes I have to sit in the shoes of the parents. Sometimes I have to sit in the shoes of my drivers, in the shoes of my different team members. But also in terms of just me being able to manage the business well and be able to really appreciate where we're going. It's also taught me to delegate. So in certain instances, I've had to have the team rotate different roles so they too can appreciate what it means to be a driver, what it means to be a CEO, what it means to be a COO. So it's taught me quite a lot.
Awesome. So we have a few more questions that have come in. Lawanda Holloman, so good to see you, a friend from the past. If there were 3 top needs you had at this moment to advance your business, what would those needs be? Thank you so much, Lawanda.
Thank you so much, Lawanda. I would say the first one would be we need a bit more tech and training to get into it. And training is so diverse, there's a whole lot that we try and do in our own space, but we need much more. Would definitely need bit of capital injection. And thirdly, having a great community around us to just support us in the different spheres that encompass the business.
Very good. Thank you so much. So we have a question coming in from another of our scholars here who also works with our office. Alana is asking, do you believe your place in your family's birth order affects the way you go about your passions? For example, do you think that since you are an older sister, that you're more passionate about the well-being of younger folks?
Not necessarily, Alana, about my birth order, but I think it speaks more into who I am and how I've been able to develop myself as a leader. I'm very passionate about youth empowerment, and growing up, I really wanted to be a pediatrician. So because I could not handle the whole surgery thing along the medicine journey, I just quit. So the closest that I have really is having children as a target market. It really speaks into what my passion has always been. So yeah.
Very good. So I think we have time for one more question. Let's take this question about, let's see, whether the project is countrywide in Zambia.
Not as yet. Thank you so much, Lamba, for joining in. We just officially launched out in Lusaka this year, January, and we do hope we should be in Ndola and a couple of other towns sometime next year. But definitely, we've had a lot of interest from other towns outside Lusaka. Thank you.
Yes, and I will say this: there has been a question up here about you've already spoken to women's empowerment generally, but any particular insights about when you're in an environment that is full of males, any insights or wisdom you can provide?
I'll speak into that because I think I'm in an environment where it's male dominated, the transportation, space. But truly, again, it's understanding who you are, understanding your purpose, understanding where you need to go. And even though you may be in a corporate environment full of males, see them as collaborators and not partners, and let them see themselves as your collaborator as well. That way, it kind of like kills off the stigma around competition. So create that safe environment and just keep doing you, keep engaging. There's a place where you can have safe boundaries. and you'd still be able to engage more on the social, but also more on the corporate style of things. So understanding, and again, the biggest win is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence all the way is always for the win.
So one last question, I promise. How do you balance the demands of running your business with personal demands, family responsibilities, all of those things in a high demand service industry?
Hi, Zoe. Again, being true to yourself, understanding who you are as a person. I know what keeps me up at night. I know what creates the balance. I know when I've had enough and I need to step back. So really understanding who you are as a person. And it's not like you knowing who you are, or, you always be on that journey of self-discovery. So, but certain things are standard and they never change. So knowing those things, they'll definitely bring you back into balance, and knowing what really keeps you grounded. So is it, what beliefs do you have? Are you a person who's really strongly grounded on affirmations? How often do you have those things? Who is your go-to person when you really are downcast? Who is your pickup person? Who do you pick up the phone? Who do you rant to? What's your pickup music? When you're nervous and you're going to go in and just under so much pressure, how do you slow down, prioritize certain things, get through one emergency and then move on to the next, and just move with so much grace that people wouldn't know that you've got a whole hurricane going on around your life, if I may say that. But yeah.
That is awesome. Awesome. So we are just deeply grateful for having you here, for all of your wisdom and insights and knowledge. We want to thank you, Tetiwe, for sharing your story, your vision, all of that with us today. You've been so inspiring for us as we've learned more about Kitty's Commute. If you all are not following her on LinkedIn, I am going to ask that you consider doing that. She's on LinkedIn, Instagram, so is Kitty's Commute. Make sure that you follow, because you'll have firsthand view of all of the amazing things that they are doing there. But you've been so such an inspiration as we've gotten to know you, and our students have worked on a live case study for your company. We see that you innovate with courage, with resilience, and with purpose. I think if we think about today's takeaways, there are a few themes. The first of which is that local challenges can indeed unlock global opportunities, that women's leadership matters, our insights, our perspectives, the inclusive solutions that we bring to the table, and that aligning business with ESG principles and the SDGs isn't just about social good, but it is about growth and partnerships and long-term impact, and of course, sustainability. So for everyone here, whether you're a student, a business leader, a stakeholder, whether you're here in the States or in another geography, we believe the message is clear. The future belongs to those who step up to solve problems, who lead with empathy and courage, as we learned that Tetiwe is doing with Kitty's Commute, and those who see sustainability not as a checkbox, but truly as a competitive advantage. So we challenge you as you leave this space, ask yourself, what problem can I turn into an opportunity? What kind of leader do I want to be? And how can I align my work with impact that lasts? Again, we want to thank everyone that has made this possible. We ask that you carry forward this spirit of conversation across difference, using empathy as a foundation for everything that we engage in. Know that the story doesn't end here. It begins with each of us. Thank you all so very much. And can we please show some love in the chat to Ms. Tetiwe Nzimah of Kitty's Commute? And thank you all so very much for being here.